bounded buffer as well as infinite buffer. Okay. So now we are switching the method, right? We have seen the semaphore method, right? And we are switching towards the monitor, right? Monitor is also a programming language mechanism, but it gives you more power, right? And the other advantage is it is supported by the programming languages like Java, right? So Java by default has monitors implemented, right? So you just have to declare a monitor block, and then whatever you code inside that, it is going to guarantee mutual exclusion at least. Fine. So monitor is more powerful than semaphores, right? So let us start with that content. Okay. And today we are going to explore monitors only. Fine. We need to see two more concepts in this chapter. One is monitor, and the second is message passing. Whenever the processes are communicating using messages, right? In that case also, we need to synchronize properly, right? Because suppose it happens that there are two processes which wants to communicate, right? So every process might be waiting for the message from the other, isn't it? It is possible, right? Whenever you are having communication, you can say that first that person will speak, and that person might be thinking that you will speak. And due to that, again, which problem arises? Which is the common issue that we face? It is a deadlock situation. Yes, that's right, right? So we need to see two more solutions, right? That help us to solve this mutual exclusion as well as synchronization. Okay. Now I hope you are at least clear that what is mutual exclusion and what is synchronization, right? So basically, when we say that we are synchronizing, can you write that in the chat? What is synchronization problem? Mutual exclusion means only one process is allowed to access its critical section at a time. That is clear. What is synchronization? We should take turns. That is, whenever, yes, exactly, coordination. Very good, Rishi, right? So whenever you are signaling to the other process that you are out of the critical section, right? So now the other processes can use the critical section, and that is required, because if that is not done, you will be suffering, or you will be making the processes suffer from starvation, and even deadlock is possible, right? So both the requirements are present. We have to do mutual exclusion as well as we have to synchronize between the processes, right? In case of semaphores, what do you think? Both the aspects are supposed to be handled by programmers, yes or no? Mutual exclusion plus synchronization. Both the things have to be taken care of by the programmer. So you can say there is a lot of dependency on the programmer's own logic, right? If you think the problem in other way, you will not be clearly solving the problem, right? You might be solving one issue, mutual exclusion, but you might miss out, if your logic is poor, then you might miss out solving the synchronization problem efficiently. That is possible, right? So we can say that there is a lot of different dependency on the programmer's logic. How programmer is writing the same weight, same signal operations, where they are writing, that is also critical, right? We have seen that situation. If you swap two same weight calls, what it can lead to? Last time we discussed that, right? Same weight of N and same weight of S, right? So suppose I write same weight of S first and then N inside, it leads to deadlock, okay? In case of same signal, it does not happen, because signaling is just incrementing the values, right? While weighting is a very critical part. So as a programmer, you have to first analyze the problem, right? You need to write it on paper that what will happen when the value becomes negative, what happens when the value becomes 0 to negative, right? So all these scenarios we need to frame out, okay? So you can say that that is a limitation of semaphores, that is programmers are having the complete burden, okay? While in case of monitor, some of the burden is taken away. That is, mutual exclusion is going to be provided by monitors by default, right? Monitor is a black box, right? Whenever you enter that monitor, it is guaranteed that no one else can enter. It is just like that, right? So just understand monitor as a, I'm going to show you the diagram as well, but this is the brief, right? Are you clear with the basics, right? And limitation of semaphores, that is more important, right? Yes, good. Okay, so let me share the screen for today. So most probably this and the next class will finish with this chapter, and then I'm going to jump for the deadlock, right? So I'll take 2 or 3 more classes on deadlock. Okay, that will be, so we'll be yes, deadlock is in chapter number 6. Right now we are discussing chapter number 5. I'm leaving out one problem, reader writer's problem, because that we are going to cover in lab session. It is again based on semaphores. So we'll cover that in a separate lab. I'll explain you that problem and then you have to program it. Right? So that I'm keeping for the lab session. Okay. Except that this entire chapter will be completed. Right? Monitors and message passing, 2 major topics are remaining. Okay. So let us begin. Can you all see the slides? Okay. Okay, fine. Right. So as I told you, semaphores are difficult to control, right? Because same weight and same signal calls can be scattered, right? And if they are written randomly at random positions, there can be major issues, right? While monitor is also a programming language construct, right? That provides equivalent functionality. That means it gives you the same capability, right, to that of the semaphores, but it is easier to control. Because as I told you, monitors provide mutual exclusion by default, right? So as I said, consider monitor as a box, right? If someone wants to enter that box, only one can enter. That is guaranteed. Okay. We are going to see the block diagram of monitor, as well as we will see the bounded buffer producer consumer solution using monitors, right? So that you will be clear with that. Fine. Okay. So monitors again rely on procedures, right? Like, see, in semaphores we have same weight and same signal, right? Similarly, over here you can have one or more procedures. But the change is, you can actually write the procedures inside the monitor, right? So suppose I want to write the append method, right? I want to write the append method for producer consumer. So in append, ideally what should we do? I should create a new character, right? I should add it to my buffer, okay, and increment the count. Yes or no? That's what we do normally. We create a new character, we add it to the buffer, okay, and we increment the pointer. Yes or no? That's what we do as a producer, right? So where should we write that append procedure so that it is used by only one process at a time, right? I'm again repeating, where should we write that procedure so that it can be used by only one process at a time, right? So that answer is given by monitor. Monitor is a container where you can add your procedures which you want to be mutually exclusive. Getting some idea, right? Think of as a black box, right? Where you can add ingredients, right? First ingredient you can add is what? Procedures, right? That procedure can be used at a time by only one process at a time. Can we say that mutual exclusion is guaranteed if that is satisfied? If some process is using that process, say that procedure, container in the sense, yes, Sainish, you can imagine container as a box, right? In box, whatever you place, right, that is accessible by only one person at a time. That is the kind of mechanism monitor provides. Are you getting some idea, Sainish? Yes. Again, when I'll show you the solution of producer consumer, it will be more clear. Right now we are discussing the theory part. Okay, fine. Next is initialization sequence, right? So basically, wherever you will be using buffers, you will require some local variables, yes or no? Like we have used that in the standard producer consumer problem, right? So those variables are also declared inside monitor. So what is the interpretation of that? Suppose I'm declaring an integer x inside a monitor, then what can you say based on the basic description of monitor concept? That variable can again be accessed by only one process at a time. Getting some idea, right? Okay, so imagine monitor as a box, whatever you put inside, right? Only one can access. Only one can access. It is like that. Okay. So you can even initialize your variables inside monitor, right? So that initialization will also not be inconsistent, right? Suppose you want to initialize your variable x with 10, Okay, so it won't be happening that two processes will be initializing at the same time. Only one process, which is inside the monitor, will be initializing. Okay. Plus, you may also have a local data, that is local variables, as I said. Okay. So I'm again repeating, monitor is such a construct where you can put procedures. Procedures are nothing but your functions, right? In C, we call them as functions, right? You can put your variables, right? Second thing, plus you can initialize those variables inside the monitor. Clear with these three aspects? Right? What you can do inside monitor, right? That is the these 3 points are describing. Okay, we are going in detail, don't worry, right? You will be clear with this. Okay. Now, what happens when you are declaring something within monitor, right? So that is called a characteristic of monitor, right? So if you're asked, what are the characteristics of monitor? This slide is the answer for that, right? Okay. So local data variables are accessible by monitor's procedures only. So suppose I have declared an append procedure. I have declared an append procedure with character X as argument. Okay. And this procedure is inside the monitor. Is inside the monitor, right? So suppose I have declared a buffer, right? Let us say buffer of 5, right? And this declaration is also inside the monitor. Okay. So what can we say about this relation, right? Whenever I'm declaring a buffer variable or a buffer array, it can only be accessed by the monitor's procedure only. That means any external entity cannot use this directly. Any external entity cannot use this directly. Can you see some kind of object-oriented concept over here? What is the object-oriented concept we are trying to map? We can't access without having the privilege. In OOP, what is the privilege we should have to call a method? We should be able to create the object of that, right? If we are not able to create the object, we won't be able to access. Are you following this? Yes or no? Yes? Yes, exactly. You can say specifier, or you should have the access to that at least, right? When you have the right to create an object of that class, then only you can invoke the method using specifier again. Yes, if it is public or private, right? It depends upon specifier also. So that is the basic concept over here. Fine. So local data can only be accessed by the class method. If you refer to your object-oriented programming concept, right? If you want to access a local variable, let us say private variable, who can access that? If a variable is private within the class, who can access that? The method of the same class or within the class. Yes, right? So that is the same thing we are using over here. Something which you are declaring inside monitor, it is local to monitor only. Outside methods cannot invoke it. Okay, and that is why it is going to guarantee mutual exclusion, right? Because you are not having interference. Following this concept, right? It is more or less related to object-oriented, and that is why Java provides it. That is the reason why Java provides this concept, right? Okay. A process enters monitor by invoking one of its procedures, as we do in object-oriented programming, right? We create the object, and using the object, we call the method, right? So similarly, if you want to enter the monitor, you have to invoke the procedure of monitor. Otherwise, you can't have the entry. Okay. So this property is also the object orientation's encapsulation property, right? If you want to access the internals, you have to have the access rights. Okay. So first and second, basically, that is written over here. First and second are just like object orientation or object-oriented programming. And that is why most of the OOP languages provide the support of monitors, right? Okay. And the third, as we all know, only one process may be executing in the monitor at a time, right? So by default, which property is satisfied? Mutual exclusion is satisfied, right? Programmers do not have to worry about this, right? Programmers just have to call the monitor procedure, and if that call goes through, what you can say? that process which is accessing the monitor at present is having right to access the monitor. At the same time, if someone calls monitor, that will be blocked. Okay, so actually in SAM wait, if you remember, we were having a waiting queue, right? So similarly, if you imagine monitor as a gate, right? Consider monitor as a gate, and the first, yes, I'll repeat, Rishi, surely. I'm giving an example for this. Consider monitor as a gate, right? Outside the gate, you have a long queue, right? So only the first process, which is at the top of the gate, can enter, right? What will happen to the other processes? They will by default be blocked or waiting. Understood, right? So that is what more than one process cannot enter into monitor at a time. That's what Priyank I'm saying, right? You imagine a gate with a queue, right, of waiting processes, right? The first process which has reached over the gate will be able to enter, the others have to wait, okay? They will be waiting where? Outside, right? In semaphores, what was the concept we were having? We were having that semaphore queue, right? Remember? And in that semaphore queue, as the count became negative, the processes were waiting. Over here, there is nothing like counting, right? You are waiting outside, right? When that process, which is inside the monitor, comes out, only then the second one will get the chance, right? So imagine you have a gatekeeper who is allowing only one process to enter at a time. That is the concept of monitor, okay? We'll see the diagram next, so you'll be clear. Yes, it will be blocked. That's right. Okay, let us look at the diagram first, then I'll go back to the previous slide, okay? So just observe this. We have a queue for entering processes, right? Don't worry about other terms, I'll explain, right? Just look at this part first. Can you see it is just like a gate? Fine. It is a queue for entering processes, okay? Only the first one who is gaining the access to monitor will be able to enter, okay? Yes, priority and all other things may play a role over here, but I'm not discussing that right now because it is a part of your dispatcher, right? Okay. So next, what is there inside monitor? Let us look at that. You have local data, right? Local variables, as I said, okay? Condition variables. Now, this is a separate concept. I'll explain that later, right? I'm skipping this portion for now. Next is procedure. So what is the example of procedure in this situation? If you are having a producer-consumer problem, if you remember, I gave you an example. Append, yes. Append is one of the procedure. Another example of procedure, yes, put and get. Very good, very well put, right? So in case of producer-consumer, I can say append and take, right? Append is a procedure to add the item and take is the procedure to remove the item. So I need to write the code of those two procedures inside where? Inside the monitor. Okay. Why we are putting that code inside? Because only one process can be inside a monitor at a time, right? So you can guarantee that two or more processes are not using this procedure at the same time. So what is guaranteed by default? Mutual exclusion is coming by default. Are you able to follow this, all of you? Right? So now I think you are clear with the container concept, Sainish. Yes, are you able to understand what is container? Right? It is containing procedures, condition variables, local. We'll see that what is conditional variable, right? Very soon. So procedures can be n, right? So 1 to k, right? Procedure number 1 to procedure number k. It is not having any limit on how many procedures you need to write inside a monitor, okay? And the third important part is initialization. Whatever variables you are declaring, right, local variables, right, if you want to initialize them, you can also do that within the monitor. So what is the advantage of that? Can anyone tell me what is the advantage of having initialization code inside the monitor? Let us say if I want to say that count is equal to 5. If I declare this inside monitor, what does that mean? This initialization will be done only, yes, it remains local, very good point. And it can be used only within monitor, right? So the problem of overwriting and everything will not happen. Following this, right? The problem, yes, no external interruptions. Very good, right? So that is what we are having. Okay. Now the left-hand side we will see once we visit the previous slide. Okay. Are you clear with the right-hand side at least? Local data, procedures, initialization, and we have a queue outside. Okay. Fine. Yes, Rishi, you can raise that doubt in chat. Meanwhile, I'll switch back to the previous slide. Yes, good question. But basically, monitor is a generalized construct, like we have seen the pseudocode, right? So in Java, even whenever you write monitor, initialization happens in a separate section, right? So whether you write it at first or at the end, right? Ultimately, initialization code is going to be executed, right? But in general, what monitor says is initialization is always done at the end, right? But that code will be executed first. I hope it is clear now, right? So your compiler will take care, right? Compiler will make sure that what happens when a process is blocked, when it is in monitor. Yes, there we are going to cover that very soon, right? As soon as we cover this condition variables concept, right? So you will be clear with that, okay? Yes. So now let us go back. The third requirement or third property, that's what we saw, is providing mutual exclusion by default. So that we don't need to worry. We are free from the issue of mutual exclusion, you can say. Now what is remaining? We need synchronization, yes or no? Because we can have a number of processes, right? We can have a number of processes in ready state, right? And even for producer consumer process, you have at least two processes, right? Producer and consumer. So you need to synchronize. So how to do that? That is done using condition variables, right? To achieve synchronization between the processes, we use condition variables, right? So let us look at that concept now. So as I said, synchronization is achieved by using condition variables, right? And if you want to achieve that, we have two functions. Like we had samWait, samSignal. Over here we are having cWait and cSignal. Okay. There is a difference between these functions versus semaphores. We will see that very soon. Okay. Let us first understand the definition, what they do. cWait suspends the execution of calling process, right, on condition C. Suspend over here means you are blocking it. Don't confuse this suspend word with shifting your process to secondary memory. I hope you are clear with that, right? We are not discussing that concept right now, right? So in different OS text, suspend term is used in various ways. This is one of the example, right? Okay. So basically you will be blocking that process on condition C. You will be blocking that process on condition C. Right now, just understand the definition. When we'll see the solution, you will be clear. Okay, fine. cSignal. cSignal resumes the execution of some process which was blocked after a cWait call. So what do you think? It is just like samWait, samSignal, similar behavior. samWait was actually used for blocking the process, right? Similarly, samSignal was used to unblock a process. Okay, it is having a similar concept. Okay, what is the difference? Let us look at that. Okay, if a process in the monitor signals, that means it calls cSignal function. Okay, and no task is waiting, right? Suppose your waiting queue is empty. Okay, then what was happening in case of semaphore, if you remember? Yes, Sainish, I'll answer that question. What was happening in semaphore when we were signaling? It was actually incrementing that semaphore variable, right? And then we were checking, is there any process blocked? Then what we'll do? We will unblock one process at a time, right? And if it was a strong semaphore, we will follow which order? First in, first out, right? Remember that concept? Yes. Over here, there is nothing like increment, decrement. right? What we simply do is we check the queue, right? If there is any process waiting, it will be allowed. Otherwise, what will happen to the signal? Signal is lost. Okay. So as far as the program's complexity is concerned, this is much lightweight. Lost means nothing will happen, Urjit. So we are not going to decrement, increment, or we are not going to make any changes in the local variables, nothing like that, right? Simply the signal will go away, removed from your memory, right? So semaphores are actually manipulating your variables with increment and decrement, while over here, there is nothing like that. You are just maintaining queues, that's it. Okay, and where are those queues present? Let us see that. Okay, I'm switching to the next slide now. Can you see these queues? Condition C1 up to condition Cn. Yes or no? Because see, we know that there can be infinite number of conditions on which your process can block, right? What are the some possible scenarios? You are waiting for that buffer to be free. You are waiting for the IO device to be free, right? So there are a number of possible conditions, right? So that is why monitor provides you a capacity that you can actually create different waiting queue for different conditions, right? Different waiting queues for different conditions, right? When we'll see the example, it will be more clear. Right now, understand this as a data structure. Okay, fine. Now, what is this queue doing over here? Can you tell me? C signal and urgent queue. Can you interpret and tell me what is going to happen? Suppose a process P1 has blocked on condition C1. Let us take this scenario. Process P1 is blocked on condition C1. So where it will be lying? In the first queue, right? You have condition C1 queue, right? Yes, right? Now, while it is blocked, can we dispatch any other process or can we allow any other process to enter monitor? Yes. Yes, why not? Because see, we have said that only one process can be inside the monitor at a time, but that does not mean that when it gets blocked, you will not allow others, because if you don't allow others, what will happen? We have seen that problem earlier, right? It is a very popular problem. Delay, or you can also say that, yes, it can lead to starvation. That's correct. Following this much, right? So that is why what should happen whenever a process blocks inside a monitor, although it is inside the monitor, still it is blocked. Okay. What we do is we allow one other process from outside the gate to enter, right? But where you will be maintaining the currently blocked process, or where you will be maintaining the status of that process? In the condition queue. Are you following? Right? That is why we have the condition queue. Yes, Urjit, I'll repeat. Whenever one process, let us say P1 has blocked, right? And if I allow P2 to enter the monitor, I need to maintain the state of P1, yes or no? Where it was blocked and all those things, right? So where do we maintain all those information? In the condition queue. Following this, so condition queue maintains that block process information, so that whenever the monitor is again free, what we can do? Whenever the monitor is again free, we can take out that process from condition queue and it can be dispatched. Yes, right? So that is why we maintain the block process information inside the condition queues, and there are n number of condition queues. Okay. When we'll see the producer consumer problem, at that time we'll see what are the examples of this. Okay, right now we are just discussing the structure. Okay, now what is this queue doing? Right, let me just roll back. Urgent queue. Suppose the condition, yes, Harsh, it will increase the size, right? But ultimately you are solving one problem of mutual exclusion, and programmer does not have to worry. So that's why we can pay that cost, right? And again, this is managed by your compiler, right? Basically, because monitor is a programming language construct, right? So we don't have to worry about management of those queues. That is another advantage, right? Yes. So suppose now P2 is out of, or let us say P2 is currently executing in monitor, right? And the condition on which P1 was waiting, the condition on which P1 was waiting occurs. So what we have to do? I'll repeat. P2 is inside monitor, okay? And the condition on which P1 was waiting is occurring now. So I need to signal, yes or no? I need to signal to process P1. Yes, there are two possibilities. Either you wait till P2 complete, or you can dispatch that process immediately. That might also depend upon the priority and all other aspects. Yes or no? Right? So basically what we require, we need signal. All of you agree with me with this point? I need to signal that process that now your condition has occurred. So now you can be coming back to ready state. Okay, so what happens? Right? Let us understand it. You enter the urgent queue by doing that. So P2 will signal, I'm giving you an example to make it more clear. P2 will signal P1, right? Understood this much? P2 will signal P1, okay? After that signal is made, P2 can enter the urgent queue. Why? Because P2 wants to give chance to P1 to complete its task. P2 wants to give chance to P1 because the event for which it was waiting or the condition for which it was waiting has occurred. Okay. So while P1 completes, while P1 completes, where P2 is going to reside? Suppose P1 is dispatched for a small while to complete this task. Okay. So should I actually block P2 or should I pause it? What do you think? We should pause, right? We should not even make P2 suffer, right? Okay. So for that, we use urgent queue. Yes, you can say, Ronak, it is a separate queue, but you can say that it is a ready queue. Exactly. Similar concept, right? Okay, but remember, this is all inside where? Inside monitor, right? And managed by the monitor and your programming language. So the headache of programmer is less, right? So understood this example, right? What is the role of urgent queue? For some time, your process will join the urgent queue. The process which was there in the condition queue will be brought back in monitor. Okay, it will complete its task, and then immediately, now you have two choices. Let us say P1 has completed its job. P1 has completed. And then you have two choices. Either to bring P2 or to bring P3, which is lying outside the gate. What should be the ideal choice? Definitely P2, right? Because it was already in the monitor and it allowed another process to run, right? And it just paused for a while. Okay. So you can imagine this like as being two ready queues. Yes or no? Right? One queue is inside the monitor, the other is there outside. Exactly. Right? So this is the concept of monitor. Are you realizing the importance? Yes, priority will also play a role over here, Harsh. So if that is there, then the outside process might also be allowed if priority is the issue, right? It is the headache of dispatcher then, right? Pausing logic, yes. Pausing logic is nothing but, see, you will be saving your local variables and everything, right? and then when you resume at the next line which you executed at the end. Janil, so it is just like we do process switching, right? If preemption happens, then process will join the urgent queue. No. Whenever you signal, then only the urgent queue is used, right? Not in case of preemption. Child, yes. So remember, urgent queue is only for synchronization purpose. Urgent queue is only for synchronization purpose, to signal the other processes. And if that process is supposed to run, you will be waiting. Sometimes shouldn't be scheduling based on selection, whether. Yes. So your scheduling algorithm's complexity further gets increased if you are using monitor. So it has to be modified. Yes. So the criteria of scheduling will depend whether you are using monitor or not. Yes, sure. I'll scroll. So which were the questions you are discussing, Urjit? I'm not clear. Remaining question means? Okay, in chat. Yeah, sure. Okay, Sainish has a question. P2 will always give chance to P1. Not always, Sainish, because that depends upon the priority as well, right? So we cannot say that strictly, right? Yes, Urjit has a question. P1 is already in waiting block. So why such logic is required when we can directly make P1 wait till P2 complete? Yes, Urjit, your point is correct. But basically, see, we don't want to move that process outside, right? And P1 is not actually waiting for a complex condition, right? You will be just waiting for a buffer to be free, right? That might be a simple condition, right? So that is why we keep the waiting processes, right? We keep signaling them basically, right? We keep signaling those waiting processes, and based on the signal's current situation, based on the queue situation, we decide. Okay, I think we should go for the example so that you will be more clear, right? Let us go with that, and then let us say, yes, in terms of efficiency, like if new process has less requirement of time over the paused process, then it should be given priority. Then will it happen in monitor, or it would still? No, it would prefer the paused one, because that is the monitor's construct, right? It does not. See, you have to compare basically. Then you will be comparing the inner process with the outer process, and then the final decision would be taken, I can say, right? Whatever is there inside monitor, right, plus whatever is processes which are waiting outside, you have two choices to make, right? Out of that, only one can be selected, right? Now for that, you might have priority reasons, you might have running time reason, as you have studied in scheduling, right? So basically, as long as the monitor is inside the procedure, as long as the process is inside the monitor, that should be preferred. Otherwise, there is no use of having this monitor concept, right? Right. Again, this will be further clear when we'll see the producer consumer solution. Yes, Urjit, inside outside concept, surely. See, that is already there in this slide. So let us go through this once again. Okay, the theory, whatever I explained. If you still have any doubt, we'll discuss it upon, right? Okay. So a process can enter the monitor by invoking any one of its procedures. We can think of the monitor as a single entry point, as we saw in the figure, right? There is a single entry point over here, okay? That is guarded so that only one process may be in the monitor at a time. Only one process may be in the monitor at a time. Now understand this line. Other processes that attempt to enter monitor join the queue of processes blocked waiting for monitor availability. So is this outside queue or inside queue, Urjit? Specifically, this question is for you, if you understood that. It is outside queue. Understood that much? Right? As long as the first process is inside, you cannot enter. Right? But now let us go in detail. Once a process is inside the monitor, it may temporarily block itself. Understand the statement. it may temporarily block itself on condition X by issuing C wait. So while you are inside the monitor, you can block based on some condition. Is that much clear? Yes, you will go to condition Q. That's correct, Urjit. All of you are clear with this? Up to this? Yes. So C wait function cannot be called from outside, right? When you are outside. When you are inside, then only you can call it. Okay. That is one point. Fine. It is then placed in the queue of processes waiting to re-enter monitor. Waiting to re-enter monitor. What does that mean? You are over here. Can you see this gateway? Although it is a part of monitor, but you can say there is a small gate inside the campus. Can you imagine like that, right? It is a small gate inside the campus itself. Okay. So you are blocked. Yes, you are inside the monitor. You are blocked. That is the concept. Okay. Fine. Good. When the condition changes, that means what? When you are having, yes, why we are having two different gates? The purpose of that is to satisfy mutual exclusion, right? Because monitor is just like a black box, right? So it is designed like that. That's why we are having two different gates, Urjit. There is no other reason for that, right? It is the monitor's design. Okay. Yes. And when the condition for which you are waiting, right, that process can resume the execution. That process can resume the execution. So suppose P1 was blocked, right? It went to the condition queue, right? And then it will resume as long as the condition or as long as the condition occurs. Okay. Now, P2 entered monitor while P1 was in condition queue. P2 entered monitor while P1 was in condition queue. Are you clear with this statement? All of you? Right. Now see what happens. If a process that is executing in the monitor, which is that process? P2. Right? If that process which is executing in the monitor detects a change in condition variable, that means the condition for which you are waiting occurs. It will issue signal. P2 will issue signal. For which purpose? For which purpose? So that P1 can be dispatched whenever its turn comes, right? Which alerts the corresponding condition Q, right? That the condition has changed, right? So now P1 is eligible to run. All of you understood this. P1 is eligible to run. Whether it will run or not, that is decided again by the dispatcher. Yes or no? Clear? Right? Okay, now I am giving you the solution, right? Within the next 10 minutes, let us focus on the producer consumer's simple solution. You will not find this complex to understand because it is a simple, you can say C program kind of solution, right? Is C signal performing two tasks, pausing the current process and resume? Yes, you can say that because see, you are resuming the same process, right? C signal will be invoked by the other process, right? We'll see that, Janil, in the solution, right? So it will be clear. Yes, so let us focus on this. I'm zooming in. Is it readable? Yes, good. See, I need to declare the monitor first, right? So that's why you can see the declaration of the first line, monitor, and what is the name of that? Bounded buffer producer consumer. So that's why the name of the monitor is bounded buffer, okay? Whatever you write afterwards, that is a part of what? That box. I'm setting a boundary, I'm drawing a boundary, okay, by writing this line, okay? So this character buffer, integer next in, next out, or even the count and everything, where all these declarations are happening? Yes, inside the monitor. Remember the structure of monitor? You declare the variables inside monitor, you initialize them inside monitor, right? That is the concept, okay? So what is buffer? It is the space for the n items, right? Next in and next out are nothing but buffer pointers, right? To keep track of the items to be removed or item to be added, okay? Count is to just compare the current value, Count keeps the number of items in the buffer. Okay. Now, see, we are having two condition variables. This is the important part. Not full and not empty. Can you tell me when not full condition is true? Think and answer. When not full condition is true. When there is at least one space available. Yes or no? When there is at least one space available in the buffer. All of you are following this, right? In that case, not full condition will be true. Okay, good. When not empty condition, yes, Urjit, I'll repeat. When at least one empty space in the buffer, then I can say buffer is not full, right? If my buffer capacity is 5 and currently I'm having 4 items, can I say it is not full? I'm having 4 items in 5 capacity buffer, right? I can say that it is not full. Okay, good. Not empty. What does that mean? When it will be true? When it is full, exactly. Right? Okay, good. Now let us continue. Let us look at the first procedure, append, right? If count is equal to n, what is that condition signifying? Current count is equal to the number of items, buffer is full. What should happen to the producer? What should happen to the producer on full buffer? It should block. And for that, see what we are doing. See wait on not full condition. That means until what your producer will be waiting? Until not full condition is true or false. Think logically. It is true. Very good. Understood this much? Right? So as long as buffer is full, producer cannot go further. Okay, like we did in previous case. It is just like semaphore, right? Now you can easily relate. Okay, see what we are doing next. If there is at least one space available, what we can do? Yes, if there is at least one space available, what is the thing we can do? We can add an item, right? So that's what we are doing. Buffer of next in is equal to x. X is the new item which we are passing over here, right? Then next in will be incremented. And why we are using modulo operator? Because we want it to be bounded as well as circular, right? So your index should be set to 0 once you reach the last index, right? You have done that in programming many times, right? Okay, good. Next, count plus plus, right? So your count gets incremented, one more item in the buffer. And see what we are doing over here. If you remember the same signal of your producer part, remember why we were doing same signal at the end? So that if the consumer was blocked on empty buffer, it can wake up. Remember that? If the consumer was blocked on empty buffer, it could run, right? Same thing we are doing over here. See signal on not empty. That means if your process is blocked on not empty condition, right? So when not empty will become true? When not empty will become true? When the buffer is full, right? So if a process was waiting on not empty condition variable, it will be waken up, right? And it is very obvious. Where should I write C wait of not empty? C wait of not empty? Yes. Where should I write C wait of not empty? Can you see this code over here? Just try to compare this with the producer consumer. Then it will be very easy to understand, right? Are you able to understand this line? If count is equal to 0, C wait of not empty. What does that mean? Yes. Buffer is empty, right? You can see the comment. Avoid underflow, right? Okay, understood this much? Yes or no? Yes, surely. See, assume consumer is running first. Let us take that example, right? When consumer runs first, right, what we should do? The buffer is empty at present, right? So not empty variable. What is the status of that? Yes. Not empty is false, right? So to make you more clear, I'll give you the situation over here. not empty is true when there is at least one character in the buffer. Yes or no? Right? In the other case, it is false. Okay. So basically, by checking this condition, right? I'm zooming in further. If count is equal to 0, that means my buffer is empty. Okay. I need to block the consumer. Now, until what the consumer should be blocked? Until not empty becomes true. Yes, that's correct. Understood. Right? See, there is a naming convention that is confusing you, it seems, right? Otherwise, the solution is almost clear, right? Good? Good to all? Right, up to this? Now, what is left? Just take out the item, decrement the pointer, right? And we are having another pointer, remember? Next in, next out. Okay. So, next out will be incremented by 1, count will be decremented, and see what we are doing. What is the purpose of this line? Tell me. Then I can understand that you have understood the concept. See signal of not full. What it is doing? It will wake up blocked consumer. Sorry, producer. On which condition your producer would have blocked? On which condition your producer would have blocked? On buffer full condition. Exactly. Right? So now we will be waking up the blocked producer by doing this line. Okay. Understood the solution? It is just like a C program, right? Just imagine this like a C program. Okay. And then comes what? Initialization. Right? Okay, sorry. I've switched one more slide. See. Next in is initialized to 0. Next out is 0. Count is 0 initially. Right? And remember, where we are initializing the variables again? Inside the monitor. So the values cannot be overwritten, right? The consistency of the values will be maintained. It is guaranteed because everything is there inside the box. Understood the monitor concept now? Yes or no? Yes, I'll upload these slides today itself. And I think the partial slides are already available. But still, I'll update the latest ones. Go through it once again. Okay. And in the next class, we are going to go with the concept of message passing. Okay, is it for safety that once using a variable is done to reset them? Yes, it is for safety, definitely, right? And safety from the other processes, basically, right? Okay, it is possible that more processes block on the same condition, then all processes resume based on condition. Yes, that's right, Ronak. It is possible, and that is why we are maintaining a queue. Okay. So on every condition, you have one queue. On every condition, you have one queue, right? So if all the processes are waiting on the same condition, they will be joining the same queue, right? In case of producer consumer, can you tell me how many queues or condition queues will be having? Let me directly ask that so that you are clear. Yes, it is equal to what? Number of condition queues is equal to what? Number of condition variables. Yes or no? Remember, we are using 2 variables. Okay. And definitely, we need one more queue. What is that? 2 condition queues plus 1 urgent queue. So inside your monitor, you will have 3 queues for producer consumer. Okay. Size of condition queue, it may need to, yes. So size will be dynamically allocated by your programming language, Harsh. So we don't need to worry about that, right? And that is why there is an advantage over here. Okay, fine. Still, if you have more questions, we can discuss that tomorrow. Okay, or in the next class. Tomorrow we have the lab. On Wednesday we can take. Okay, and if you are clear, we'll go with message passing. Okay, that will be the last topic of this chapter. Okay, fine. So have a good day ahead. Let us end.